G'day Bomber fans, it is time to talk contracts. We currently have 17 players out of contract on our list, plenty of which are already in talks to re-sign. Plenty others with their futures a bit up in the air. So we're going to go through every out of contract player and discuss what's going on with their future. Probably a longer video today because I do like to yap, so let's get into it. Starting with Big Sammy Draper. So there's a bit here. The list of free agents was released by the AFL, and the biggest surprise was Sam Draper being listed as an unrestricted free agent and not a restricted free agent like many thought he would be. What that means is that he is, one, he's not being paid that much right now. If you're outside the top 25% of earners at the club, you fall under unrestricted free agency, which just means clubs can make an offer, and if we match it, meaning we offer to pay the same amount, he can still leave. If you're a restricted free agent, clubs can keep their players if they offer the same terms. But when you're unrestricted like Draper is, he can do whatever the bloody hell he wants. It just means he's easier for other clubs to get pretty much. But the way it's shaping up, Draper will probably stay with Essendon anyway. The plan is for his management to meet with the club in the coming weeks for talks to really ramp up. And the plan is for him to be signed to the club on a long-term deal. And a bit of a revelation recently was the fact that Draper is well and truly settled in Melbourne. It's apparently more likely for him to join a rival club than Adelaide or Port Adelaide. And according to the Herald Sun, it would take something dramatic for him to leave. And also, I should just say, because there's a bit of a narrative around the unrestricted nature of his free agency and whether or not it would affect his compensation or our compensation if he was to leave. I don't think that's the case at all. Clubs are still going to offer Draper big money to get him out because they still need to tempt him away. It's not like they can offer him $200,000 a year and he'd happily, walk across and leave Essendon nowhere. He would. It's not one of those situations where he'd be willing to take a pay cut or big pay cut elsewhere. I still think it would be band 1 or 2 compensation if he was to leave, so a first rounder. I think Josh Battle last year, the exact same thing. Actually, Battle took less money to go to Hawthorn. So clubs are still going to be offering Draper big amounts to tempt him out, but the way it's looking now, he will likely stay with Essendon. Dylan Shiel is also an unrestricted free agent due to his age, and he's someone who's been talked about a bit in the last 2 trade periods with a move. There was St Kilda that were coming for him, but Shiel came out and he said that he would like to finish his career with Essendon. He's enjoying the development of our younger players. He specifically listed Jye Menzie, Sam Durham, Ben Hobbs, Kako and Archie Roberts, and he wants success with the Bombers. So early days, but it looks like Shiel won't be the one dictating this decision as much. He's enjoying footy, he's playing well. If he continues, he will likely get a new contract with the club, which he would have earned if he keeps playing the way he is right now. But obviously there's a whole season to go, and he will likely be made to wait a little bit longer given his veteran status and the players, I guess, the other players in this video being more priority re-signings. If he does sign, don't expect it to be a long-term deal at all. Tom Edwards, horrible news the other week with that ACL injury. He came to the club, he played 2 games and is now on ice for the whole season. The good news in this horrible situation is the fact that Essendon are willing to show him a sign of faith and commit to him for next season at least. According to Josh Gablich, the club will sit down with Edwards to discuss a new deal for next year once he's settled in after his surgery and with his rehab from his injury. So that is the good news. The club is willing to give him the security required for another crack at footy and getting it started early to show him that the club is supporting him through it. So he will likely sign just the 1-year deal, you'd think, but we'll wait until it's official to celebrate it. A similar story with Nick Bryan. He's just done his ACL, but talks have already begun on a new deal but before the injury, and those talks will not slow down with this recent ACL injury. The club see him as a long-term ruck option for the future. He's still only 23, remember, that is very young for a ruck. So the feeling here is that he'll be signing a multi-year deal despite that long injury layoff, and that'll swat rival clubs away who would want to tempt him with longer offers. Remember, he has had some attention early in his career before he was getting game time at the Dons. And now Bryan also needs to crack on with his rehab before anything. He hasn't yet had surgery on that knee, so this will probably take a bit of time before it's finalised, but it'll be good news when, or I guess if it is. Harry Jones, talks have also begun on a new deal for him. Last year he was out of contract but had a trigger clause met, which automatically gave him an extra year on top of the existing contract he had last year. A bit like what we saw with Jake Stringer. He had that clause met which technically made him contracted, but obviously he wanted more security. And now the club see Jones as an out-of-contract player again. And in a show of faith, after a top 10 finish in last year's Best and Fairest, talks have begun there, according to Cal Toomey. Jones becomes a free agent in 2027 in 2 years, so the likely result would be a 2-year deal through to free agency, which would also give him more security, instead of back-to-back 1-year extensions. Jye Menzie, fresh off a 4-goal game against the Demons. Some will say that's just a blip on the radar, but we cannot argue the impact he's having for the team forward of the ball this year. He had 8 score involvements from his 10 touches against Port the week before. Against the Crows, he was the sub, but when he came on, he had 3 disposals, 3 score involvements. So he's actually playing really effective footy right now, which is great news for him because he's out of contract, and I guess he's playing like he wants a new deal. It is, however, bad news for the player I'll discuss next. I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, the way things are going, Menzie is definitely a player that could be signed up to avoid any unwanted rival attention. He was also pretty serviceable forward in 2023, if you remember, one of our highest goal kickers, and he of course is still just 22 years of age, so there is plenty left in his career. I think Menzie's already showing us that he deserves more time at the club. If he signs, it won't be a long-term deal. He's not at that level. He's been on 1- and 2-year deals pretty much his whole career. I don't expect that to change off the back of, 2.5 games of footy this year. But if he keeps impressing, who knows? Definitely want to watch. Alwyn Davey Jnr, this is the big watch for me. He's one of 2 small forwards out of contract this season. Menzie is the other who I just spoke about. Outside of those 2, we also have Kako, Gresham, Guelphy, and Reese Unwin on our list, meaning we have 6 small forwards at the club currently. And also keep in mind we have 2 NGA players linked to us in Saad El-Hawli and Adam Swade, who will both likely play forward in the forward half as well. So because of this, I struggle to see a world in which Menzie and Davey are both signed on with our club in 2026. I just think list spots are far too tight in that position, and Davey unfortunately suffered an injury after an impressive pre-season with the club, so the pressure is now on him to perform in the second half of the year, and he's got a lot of work to do. But as it stands right now, Davey is under a fair bit of pressure. A big watch on him potentially being forced out due to the amount of players we have in his position. I'd also place a watch on a role change. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him trialled across halfback in the VFL maybe. It was floated last year's preseason as well, so there's definitely something there. There's going to be another big watch on Ben Hobbs this year. The Nuggety midfielder has played every game so far for the Bombers in 2025. He was really impressive in the side's win against Melbourne recently, but all it takes is a string of poor performances followed by a demotion to the VFL, like we've seen with Hobbs in recent seasons, and he will be speculated about heavily. Last year there was talk of a trade. I believe Collingwood were keen, and although he is happy and playing decent footy right now, it won't take much for that to change. Who would have thought Stringer would be at GWS this time last year? Absolutely no one would have said that. So yeah, things are looking good now. No update on whether talks have begun or not. I'm sure the club would like to keep him on at the time of recording, but there may be others just quietly watching to see if they can nab a cheeky bargain with Hobbs. Still plenty to unfold here. Zach Reid, no news yet, but we have to assume that the plan from the club and from Reid is to really just get through as much of the season without injury before committing to anything. Really, with this guy, it's just about getting him on the park, and the contract side of things will play out secondary to that. And right now, he's playing good footy. Well, actually, in these last 2 weeks, I'd argue he's playing great footy. So yeah, this will all play out later in the year, you'd assume. With someone this injury prone, it's just irresponsible to be doing anything so early into a season. Nothing to note now. Let's just keep our fingers crossed that he plays out as much footy as possible this year. Love seeing him out there, and the longer he stays out there, the easier it is for the club to get talks underway. Jayden Laverde, another watch here. So last year, he, like Jake Stringer, wanted a little extension to secure himself at the club until 2026. He was contracted till 2025 last year. He just wanted the top up there so there was no stress the following season. The club said no. There was light trade talks. Obviously, Stringer moved. Laverde did not. He's back at the Bombers. But for the first time in a very, very long time, he isn't playing senior footy. He's stuck behind Reid in the VFL and maybe even behind Lewis Hayes. And given his age and the injuries he's suffered this preseason, it is no sure thing for him to be with us in 2026, despite him wanting to be with us, or at least wanting to a few months ago. So there's going to be a big watch on Laverde this season now. He's currently the 4th oldest at the club, not playing senior footy. That is never a good sign for someone out of contract. And by the way, he's an unrestricted free agent as well. Another unrestricted free agent and another older player not playing senior minutes, but soon he may be forced to. Todd Goldstein, Yeah, look, the likely option here is that at the end of the season he retires. I think that is the growing expectation now. He is turning 37 years old later this season. That is very old for a ruckman. He's behind younger rucks in the pecking order. He will likely have to play AFL minutes now because of the injury to Nick Bryan, but it's unlikely that season go around again in 2026. At the moment, he's pretty much our ruck coach who could be, he can play if he needs. And with more high draft picks our way, list spots are going to come at a premium. I'd be surprised if he stays with us in 2026. Jaxon Prior, another unrestricted free agent. He has that 1-year contract because he was signed as an SSP player after being delisted by Brisbane. He's played every game for the club so far. He will likely play most games he's available for the way he's going now. I'm happy with him on our list. You guys would know that. And also, after a run of solid performances, I think fans are starting to warm to the idea of Prior as well now too. He's probably going to be made to wait a little bit longer just to see how he fits in over long periods of time in that back line. But again, he's young. He's 23 years old. He's shown he can play handy footy. I think he will likely be signed up at some stage later in the year, probably, although talks have not officially begun yet, I don't believe. Saad El-Hawli is another one that's doing just exactly what he needs to do at this time in his career. Being out of contract can be tough for some, especially if you go into your contract season without a game to your name. But Saad has had 2 impactful performances off the bench as the sub. He will likely play plenty more footy as the year goes on. Remember, he's a mid-season draftee, so his contract is, far from expensive. And from the looks of things, he absolutely loves the club too. We love him. I have no doubts that this one just works itself out as the year goes on. You'd expect him to be with us in 2026. Setterfield is one of the more fascinating out-of-contract players on our list. He seems to play good footy whenever he is with us at AFL level, but through injury and I guess being lower down in the pecking order, he hasn't played much for the club. Just 4 games last year, only played his first match for us this year in round 5. So with the club trying to cut down on list spots and focus on youth under Rosa, there is a likely chance that Setterfield is made to wait until after the season ends to find clarity on his future, much like what happened in 2024. He just needs to stay out on the park and keep playing good footy, otherwise he's unfortunately in a bit of limbo. Luamon Lual is another one at risk. I would say he's in his second year at the club. He's playing through the VFL. He's looking alright and he's playing on the emergencies list, but there does come a time where a younger player just has to step up and play at the top level, especially one taken not early in the draft and one that's versatile in his positions. So Lual will be made to wait until playing more footy this year, hopefully at AFL level. He's not going to be signing on the dotted line anytime soon. There won't even be a dotted line to sign on until most likely the end of the AFL season. That is unless he comes in and presses at AFL level soon. But yeah, it's hard to justify re-signing a gameless player in their second year at the club before others around him. He is down the bottom of the priorities order, and if the season was to end now, I'd say he's probably one of the guys who'd be made to wait until over the trade period. But obviously there's a long time left still. This time next month he could have made his debut. He could be a Brownlow contender, who knows. Vigo Visentini is kind of in a similar boat to Lual. He's gameless after 2 seasons, but I think the difference here is the position. He's a project player in the ruck for the future. He's learning under Goldie in the resis, so this one's a bit tougher to read. I think it'll be about development and potential. He doesn't have to play AFL this year to get a contract. I think he just needs to prove to coaches that he's worth persisting with for another year, and maybe that's all he gets. He might just get the 1-year refresh to see how he goes in 2026, but the way people at the club talk about him suggests that he probably does get another chance. Again though, if list spots are tight, it is a lot harder to justify keeping someone who is yet to play. He isn't under as much pressure as others, but definitely not a priority re-signing. Although if Goldie retires and Draper leaves, who knows, maybe he will be. And Archer Day-Wicks out of contract because of his rookie status. That's rarely an issue for young players, especially at Essendon. You rarely see players delisted in their first season. You'd have to be genuinely unprofessional to be delisted in your first season, and Day-Wicks isn't. He's already challenging for AFL minutes. He's a regular on that emergencies list. He's playing well in the resis, looking great for the future. So yeah, the one that won't play out straight away, but he would have to do something very odd to not be offered an extension. It's looking good so far. And just a funny one, so he's not out of contract, but earlier this year, Zach Merritt was given a juicier contract than what he was currently on. He was given more money, but no years added. The same thing has just happened with Sam Durham. He has been rewarded after a big improvement in form in recent years. He is now one of our better players. He's still out of contract in 2028, but we've given him more money. I know some have an issue with this. I personally don't if the player deserves it. There is a salary cap for a reason, and we have enough room to give players I guess, that other clubs would want, the money that they deserve to be earning. It also makes it easier to plan in the future. There's less likely going to be a squeeze later down the track if you're working these things out earlier, giving the players that will probably want more money in the future the money now. I don't hate it. I know some do. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. But that is that. A contract update for you. There is plenty going on. Lots of players set to sign at some stage soon. Lots with futures up in the air. We'll have more contract updates as the year goes on. But cheers for watching for now. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and as always, go Bombers.